Hey friends, welcome to the channel. I'm Ken Smith. Today we are going to go ahead and start tearing into removing the roof on our 1930 town sedan. Now, if you've been following me along, you know that we've definitely got some issues here, and we're going to figure out the best way of trying to deal with the Bondo that was put up in here and getting the roof off and getting a really good inspection, seeing exactly what we need to do. So let's jump right in. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to start peeling this item welt back, and yeah, so the very first thing I discovered is instead of nails, we have Phillips screws in here, and I guess that'll make it easy to take out, huh? Yeah, so I'll grab the camera here so you can take a look at it. But yeah, there should be nails in here, and there's actually Phillips screws in here. So it's just a whole lot of joy right now. As I mentioned earlier in a previous video, I actually placed this item welt. It was kind of used some silicone to hold it in place, just to kind of cover up the Bondo cracking that was taking place in here. One, aesthetically, and two, just to help reduce the amount of water that was getting in here. Now if I peel, of course I silicone this, but if I were to, peel this item welt back, and it's obviously going to take some work on my part, but this is kind of what it looks like as I go down the line and just continue to peel it back. Now, originally this would have been folded over after it would have been nailed, but as you can see, there are Phillips screws in there, so we need to take care of that business right away. As I cut into this, you can see that there's the remains of some clear silicone. I didn't use clear silicone, so I don't know if this was done to prevent it from leaking, or if this was someone's attempt to try to stop it from leaking. In any event, it's certainly going to require a lot of work getting this off.
Now, one of the things that I wasn't expecting was that the metal cover that goes over the header that sits underneath the visor was actually bondoed to the visor as well. So there was, as hard as I tried salvaging that thing, there just seemed to be no way to get that out without literally cutting it off the back end of the visor. Now, I didn't have the opportunity to actually shoot video for this, but in the still photos that you see, I finally got the visor off, and you can see the header and how badly rotted it is, and how much Bondo was shoved in there between what was below the visor and that metal plate that kind of covers everything. All right, so now that we've got the vinyl off, there should be, right here, there should be cotton batting, and there's not. Instead, what someone did was just had this foam, and that's not supposed to be there. This should actually be cotton batting that sits up on top of the chicken wire that you see there. But once we got the top off, we were actually able to really start seeing some things that were kind of, well, for lack of a better way of saying it, kind of disheartening. And I'll get to that and show you what we've discovered. Now, I got the header out, and as you can see, there should have been wood in here, and there's not. There's really not even anything to really kind of try to establish a pattern. And I was kind of hoping for that. Now, I did get the header off,
And as I mentioned, there was a lot of body work that was done to smooth the roof line into the visor. We kind of lifted the body up a little bit just so that you could really get a good look at what someone had done. Let's go inside. Now inside we found chunks of the wood just kind of broken off and lying down there. You'll also notice, which is really scary, is plywood. They actually used pieces of plywood to support and patch the roof. You can kind of see that this is very rough cut. Not even cut on a table saw. I would say that was probably cut with a jigsaw, and probably very poorly done. If you look up in here from the driver's door towards the roof line, you can see just how poorly cut these are. There's absolutely no way that you can make a pattern from what's left. What's even more sad is you can just see where things were just kind of grafted in. The more I examined the wood in this, the more I realized very quickly that the entire car, the entire wood had to be replaced. And without even having respectable patterns, this meant buying, at this juncture, a wood kit. And you can just imagine how frustrated I am to see this. This is not what I was expecting to encounter. So as I have really dug into this car, I'll show you a few other things I've discovered. Okay, so if you look down in there, we can see some rust holes that are there. Wasn't anticipating on having to do anything there. The wheel wells looked okay, but again, that bottom portion doesn't look too good. And when I look at it from the outside looking in, it's quite obvious that some repair needs to be done. Again, up here you can see where just the wood is just really shot, unfortunately. And why on earth someone would patch this up with plywood is beyond me. Again, just no respectable patterns to even begin to work with. And that was really disheartening for me. That's not something I was expecting to see. Now, you can also see some wood rot right in here too. This, believe it or not, this was actually filled. Yes, this was filled with Bondo and steel wool. And so obviously I dug all of that out. But again, you can see that even down here, the wood is really just rotted out, unfortunately. And again, this is just another example of someone installing plywood. This was actually in the upper left corner, kind of shoved up in between the header and the inner bow rail. Just totally gone. And what they did was just shoved in some plywood. After getting the interior out of the car as well as the roof completely off the car, I decided next that I would go ahead and pull the doors off and literally give them a solid inspection from underneath. And here again, you can see a lot of damage in these four doors
that metal is kind of rotted away and was going to need to be replaced, as well as the wood in the doors. We recognized that at this juncture, it was just really an entire body kit that needed to be done, but also a tremendous amount of work, body work, that was going to happen as well. Well, it's obviously been a few days since I've been in the garage filming, and the reason being, one is had a few other things going on. Then we all got the flu, and that put us down for a little bit, and then the temperatures drastically started dropping. It's supposed to actually get to 1 degree tonight, and so hence the reason why we've got some insulated clothing on. But wanted to kind of tell you what we've decided after you seeing the picture of the doors and the work that needs to be done there, and you seeing the video of the wood, and we decided we'd started adding things up. And so we looked at how much wood that we definitely have to buy, and we definitely needed all of the wood in all of the doors. And since the doors are really, really critical, and I knew the doors didn't line up, we needed the wood kits for the doors. And so there's almost $2,000 right there, about $1,900. And knew that we needed the roof kit because, again, things were made with plywood. And so needed the roof kit and the outer rails that run along each side. And we figured that was going to be another $2,000. So we got about $4,000 in wood. And the rest of the wood that was in the car we felt was good enough to at least make patterns with. But then there's the cost involved in all of that. And we also needed all the hardware to bolt everything together, and there's the cost involved in that. We also planned on making our own interior, but in adding up the cost of the fabric material and what was going to be needed in fixing the seats and so on and so forth, we were probably looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1,000 worth of fabric material. And so there's that cost involved. But the big cost, as you could imagine, was what we figured we were going to have to spend in body and paint. And the reality is I don't have the ability to be able to paint a car. And this has to be stripped down to the bare metal. It's an old lacquer paint job. And if I don't take it down to the bare metal, it's just a problem. And so I figured that, there's the body work that I could do, and there's the primer that I could probably do, but I just don't have the ability or the facility to lay down paint. And so at some juncture, I was going to have to take this body to a painter. And I figured on the low end, $2,000. And that's on the low end. I'm thinking more realistic, it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of around $5,000 to paint the body. And after I started adding all of that up, I had to make a very difficult decision. I made a couple of phone calls, one of them to Paul Shin. And I called Paul up and I said, hey, Paul, here's what I'm looking at. And what are my options? Because essentially, I'm at the edge of the cliff. And so he kind of talked me, off the edge of the cliff, if you will. And we spent about 45 minutes just kind of bouncing some different ideas. And one of the ideas was to look for another body. And so I started looking around to try to find another body. And I didn't want to go into a 4-door, so I was looking more along the lines of a 2-door sedan. And again, I'm faced with the same scenario. I'm looking at about $2,500 for a body shell. And by the time you get done with, paint and interior and all of the other things, I'm right back at it again. About the only thing I saved myself with was probably the headache with all of the wood that's in a 4-door. Well, I didn't think that was very feasible, and I didn't want to spend 3 years doing an auto project. Now, the last time I did a 3-year project, I was in my late 20s, and I wasn't gonna jump back in and start doing a project as I turned 65. And so I just didn't really want to do a 3-year project. I enjoy the car, but I'm not in love with the car. The bottom line is, it's a car to me. I don't have any emotional attachment. That might shock you, but this isn't, when I say I don't have any emotional attachment, let me clarify. This isn't my dad's car. This isn't my father's car. There's no relatives, there's no relationship in this automobile at all. It was just a car that I found in Ohio. And so with that decision, I decided that we were going to pull the body off. We were going to salvage what we could and part it out. And so that's the decision that I made. Now, that being said, please understand that, the bottom line is, it's really easy for you, the viewer, to say you need to save the car, but it's not your check, it's mine. And so I will do whatever you want me to do with your money, but my money is mine. And so that's the decision that I decided. I didn't want to sell the car. I did too much chassis work already. It's got a new motor in it, and all of the underneath, the foundation of this car was pretty solid. And so I decided to build a Huckster. Now, you may recall that I actually interviewed 3 Huckster owners earlier last year. One guy had a true blue Huckster. The other guy built a Huckster delivery van. And the third guy that I interviewed actually won a body, and then he did a lot of modifications to that Huckster. And I didn't want to copy anybody, but I needed to get some kind of inspiration to get my juices flowing. So I reached out to the guy who built the Huckster delivery van, and spoke with Jerry, and he told me where he got it, the plans. And so I went ahead, ordered the plans, and I got the plans. And they are done by a company called Wagon Works. They do both a Huckster delivery van for Model A, as well as a regular Huckster body. You can kind of tell here, there's the Huckster delivery doors right there in the plans. The plans are pretty simple, pretty much one page. Also comes with a full sheet of instructions and a list of all of the other things that you need to purchase in order to do the build. And the same goes true with the actual Huckster plans as well. And there's the Huckster plans, and they show you how to use the Model A 3-hole regulators in order to have crank windows and whatnot. So we decided, originally I was going to build the delivery van, but I thought, well, that's a little impractical as far as not being able to get anybody in there except for me and my wife. And my daughter occasionally likes jumping in, and sometimes we use the vehicle for a parade. So we decided to go with the Huckster, with a lot of modifications that we're going to end up doing. And that's what we're really excited about. So we're going to put a back seat in the bed portion of the Huckster. It's actually going to be facing backwards. We've got my friend, who is a incredible woodworker, has a 4x8 CNC machine for wood. We're going to do some really cool engraving on the sides of it and on the tailgate, and we're going to make a kind of a hideaway rear seat, as well as the seat lifting up, and it be a storage area for tools and whatnot. So we've got a few things that are planned for that. So really excited about that. We're going to go ahead and share that with you in a lot of future content for 2024 as we go ahead and do this build. So, hey, remember, I'm always happy to hear your comments. I realize that some of you might be kind of somewhat disappointed that I elected to go this route, but again, you know, it's my check, and so I'm going to put funds how I best see it. And so, anyhow, hey, remember to give us a like and subscribe. That's important, but more than anything else, be blessed and stay tuned.